Frigidaire. We introduced the first home freezer, the first pulsator agitator washer, and now we introduce the Frigidaire Orbit Clean dishwasher, designed with a unique wash arm that gives you 4 times more water coverage for a consistently better clean. Frigidaire, over 90 years of legendary innovation.
See the full line of Frigidaire appliances at Ventura TV Electronics and Appliances.
Hi, I'm John Malos. Welcome to this live edition of Connect with me on the showroom floor at Ventura TV on this day. We got on the air, off the presses, a lot to talk about, including that crash over the weekend that involved NASCAR driver Tony Stewart. A very disturbing piece of video, and the killing of, well, the one driver was killed. We'll talk about that with our media expert today. 436-ME-TV, option 11. Back in just a moment. And welcome back to the program. Hope you had a great weekend here in the city of Fresno, or if you ventured out of town. It was nice over on the coast as well, and so welcome back if you were out of town enjoying your weekend. But a lot to talk about today. A lot going on in the news, it seems like, not only here in this country but overseas. We'll talk to our media expert about this, but just a horrifying weekend in upstate New York for racing fans. This involved NASCAR driver Tony Stewart. Now, here's a guy who's known to have a hot temper, very emotional, a guy who looks to settle the score any chance that he gets. I want to go to the videotape and warn you, it is graphic to a certain extent. It all was caught on videotape Saturday night as 20-year-old Ken Ward Jr. spun against the wall, as you see here. Ward believed it was Stewart who put him into the wall. So for whatever reason, Ward gets out of this car, walks onto the track, and begins pointing his finger at Stewart. Cars are zooming by at this point. One of the drivers avoided hitting Ward. Now there is Ward right there, his car into the wall. He gets out, as you see right there, pointing his finger at Stewart. But Stewart came whizzing by, his car fishtailed the right tire, hitting Ward and dragging him under the car before throwing him several feet along the track. Ward was pronounced dead upon arrival at the hospital, but Stewart has not been charged with any crime, although it's still a possibility. The investigation is ongoing. Yesterday, you might recall, Stewart pulled out of the NASCAR race at Watkins Glen. Stewart himself has come unglued and wagged his finger at other drivers several times, has had fisticuffs in garages and along pit row. He's never been a race car driver to back down from a good fight, let's say it that way. What do you think about what happened at this sprint car track prior to Watkins Glen on Saturday night? Live in our studio right now is Bradley Hart. He's a media expert, Fresno State communications professor. He'll weigh in on this. You also should weigh in. What should happen to Tony Stewart? Should he be charged with a crime? Should it be murder? Should it be homicide? Should it be second degree? I mean, whatever the case may be, a horrifying accident. As you might know by watching the video, we did not actually show Ken Ward Jr. being hit by the car struck by Tony Stewart's car. Could he have avoided him? 436-ME-TV, option 11. Do weigh in. Do call in. Back with our program in a moment.
When you like Ventura TV Appliance on Facebook, it's nice. But when you love the Samsung big screen we deliver, it's even better. Our website is cool, and it's a good place to start. But you really should touch the merchandise before you buy. Time for that upgrade to an HD 3D web-enabled Samsung TV. Get the best selection, price, and service in town without waiting. Come in to Ventura TV Appliance and touch the merchandise today.
So what do you think about this videotape here that we showed you? Did not show Ken Ward actually being hit. Horrifying accident that took place at a sprint car race in upstate New York on Saturday. Prior to that, Watkins Glen, a NASCAR race. Bradley Hart is here. And Bradley, good to see you, professor of mass communications at Fresno State. The bigger question is, we don't know exactly what happened, if Stewart did it on purpose, if he just couldn't avoid him. Nonetheless, whether he is charged or not, what is this going to do to his career? I mean, he's obviously devastated this happened.
Yeah.
What's going to happen, Bradley, in your judgment?
Well, it'll do nothing good to his career, would be my estimation. We obviously don't know enough. I mean, as you said, we don't know. Very difficult to prove intent in a case like this, I think, in a legal sense. Because
really?
Yeah, I mean, you see cars going by. Obviously, the victim here goes out onto the track, exposes themselves to some level of danger. How do you prove what's in Tony Stewart's mind, right? I mean, you're on a dirt track.
Yeah. Very
difficult to know. Does he try to avoid him? Does he try to buzz him? This is a dangerous sport. You have somebody who's put themselves in a significant bit of danger here.
How do we know that Tony Stewart wasn't just playing chicken with him and then say, I'm going to scare him a little bit, get this kid off the track, and then all of a sudden, boom.
Well, we don't. I mean, we probably never will. And how do you prove something like that, I think, is the question. But more realistically, I think you're going to see sponsors start to run away from Tony Stewart here. I think you're going to have a financial impact here, probably. Very difficult to, I think, sponsor someone or support them publicly when something like this happens, accident or otherwise, in that sense. But I doubt we're going to see criminal charges. I think we're going to see an analysis of how dangerous these sports are. Now, this didn't happen at a NASCAR event, but we're going to see the question of should drivers be banned from going onto the track. This goes on all the time in NASCAR. So I think you're going to see a lot of soul searching.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, call coming in. Good morning. You're on Connect With Me. Your question.
My comment is on Tony Stewart and the fortunate accident.
Speak up, if you will.
The number one rule on the track is you never get out of your car, you never unhook your seatbelt. That's the number one rule. It's just very unfortunate that the driver let his tension get away from him.
Okay, do you have a question?
No, I have no question. I just had a comment. Okay,
thank you for the call. I appreciate it very much. I want to roll the videotape one more time and show that Tony Stewart accident here where 20-year-old Ken Ward Jr., this was Saturday night, Brad. The caller brings up a good point because you see here going around and then Stewart cuts him off, boom, into the wall. Look, this is typical. It happens all the time. Cars go into walls all the time during, NASCAR, Indy, whatever the case may be. So this is not uncommon. This is a part of the game. You get put in the wall. You're out of the race. Okay, here he gets out of the car. Look. Yeah. Not a good move. Not a good move, Bradley.
Not a good move at all. And your caller's absolutely right. The number one rule is safety first in that sense. But to an extent, I think, from the media perspective, this is not in the sense that you ever want to see injuries or fatalities, but this is part of NASCAR. This is part of racing, is the crashes, fiery crashes, things of that sort. Obviously you never want to see anyone significantly injured, but your caller's absolutely right. You never get out of the car. I mean, these are cars that are, even on a track like this, going very, very quickly and can't necessarily stop. So.
Yeah, and, I'm not defending Tony Stewart, but I don't know, did you watch that movie Cars, the original movie Cars?
I did.
All right. Remember the line, to turn left, you'd actually go right?
Yeah.
Okay, in sprint cars, I know I'm not a sprint car driver, never have been, but actually drove a sprint car as a test run one time years ago. I do know that if you're turning left to go around the track, but if you're going at a high rate of speed, if you do turn too far left, you will spin out. So you do have to turn right to keep that car on the track and keep it under control. So maybe that's what happened in the Tony Stewart thing. He was like oversteering and then tried to correct it. And wham, there you go.
That's right. I think it's also worth pointing out this is a dirt track. This is not a standard NASCAR track. So everything is magnified when you have conditions that are going to be different than a professional racing situation. Right. So I think it's very difficult to know what happened here. Probably there'll be no charges filed in my non-legal opinion, in the sense that we're never going to know what he was thinking. It's a tragic accident. I think it's very difficult to prove intent.
Let's say you're a media expert. You're hired by the Tony Stewart team to fix and correct his image now.
Yeah.
Okay. When you sit down with Tony Stewart across the table, what do you tell him?
Have to show contrition. Absolutely have to show contrition and that you're sorry that this took place. And from the reports that we've seen, he was very upset that this took place and is cooperating fully with the investigation. So I think that's a good first step. I think you're going to have to do an interview at some point in which you talk about what happened and and presumably say that this was a tragic accident, but nothing more.
Would you recommend that Tony Stewart reach out to Ken Ward's family, or leave that alone?
I think leave it alone for now. I mean, obviously, there, as your caller pointed out, there's not necessarily blame to go around here, but this wasn't a case where he obviously was targeting this person deliberately, we don't think, in that sense. So
Yeah.
I think at some point, yeah, you do reach out, but I think contrition is the first step here.
Okay. Caller, go ahead. You're on the air. Hey, caller.
Yeah.
Caller, go ahead. You're on the air. Go ahead.
We think a lot of things about NASCAR and about racing.
Okay.
My uncle loves NASCAR and racing, and he has the opportunity to speak right now, but he wants you guys to hear it. But he's embarrassed, kind of. Okay? Right here. Hello?
Yeah, go ahead. You're on the air. We can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just seem to think that kid should have never got out of his car and with Tony Stewart's car or the other guy that was in it.
Okay, we can't. It's not audible. We can't even. Okay, I have to turn it off. Sorry about that, but that call is just not audible. When you call in, we appreciate it very much. Turn down the sound on your television set, and do talk directly into the phone. Don't muffle the receiver, because otherwise we won't be able to hear you. If we say you're on the air, you're on the air. Go ahead and ask your question or make a comment, if you will. Here talking with Bradley Hart about this Tony Stewart incident taking place in upstate New York. We're going to be back with Bradley, a mass communications professor at Fresno State, and your phone calls, your observations and comments about the Tony Stewart accident taking place over the weekend. Back in a moment.
When you're looking for KitchenAid innovation and quality, who has the answers, the selection, the price? Ventura TV Appliance. With billions in nationwide appliance buying power, more than Home Depot and Best Buy combined, we'll help you save. Our low prices on Energy Star qualified KitchenAid appliances save you energy and money, and pay no interest on select models when paid in full within 12 months. Ventura TV Appliance, serving you since 1951.
Back here on the program, do we have a call? Call coming in? Or he's there? Okay. Hello, caller. Go ahead. You're on the air.
Yeah, from what I saw in the video, looks like the guy should have never got off the car, and there shouldn't be no charges filed against that steward, because what the heck are you doing getting off the car and going in the middle of the racetrack? Are you nuts?
Yeah, well, we thank you for the call. We pointed that out, of course, a couple of times here already. And what else can you say about it? I mean, really not a very smart move. And when you see, this is the classic case of road rage. Would you not agree? Even though it's on a racetrack, I mean, this young kid, 20 years old, just really ticked off that Stewart cut him off, so he's going to settle the score, and look what happened.
Yeah, not advisable to do that on Highway 41 or 180, certainly, if someone cuts you off or there's a crash of some kind, obviously. Yeah, I completely agree with the caller. I mean, I think this is an unfortunate accident. I think there is going to be some soul-searching among the NASCAR community about this, because this does go on in races, and there is a certain spectacle that goes on, right? People watch these races for the drama. They don't watch it simply to see the cars going around the track. They watch it for the crashes, for the human interactions in that sense. I think you're going to see the question of, should there be rules about this? Should there be enforcement? Should there be greater safety measures put into place? Again, this did not take place on a NASCAR track. This took place outside.
Even if you put, the only thing is I can think of, though, even if you put a rule in place that says no driver can get out of the car.
Yeah.
Okay, or you're suspended or you're fined, after an accident. You stay in your car, or you're going to pay the penalty when you get out, if you get out. Once something happens and the adrenaline is flowing, we have a call, and you're ticked off that someone cut you off, and someone can't control their temper, they're going to do it anyway.
But you have to control your temper in all sports. I mean, NASCAR is uniquely dangerous. People often don't die playing baseball.
Yeah, not too often, no. Caller, go ahead. You're on the air.
Yes, my question is, and I don't think anybody said anything about this, but does NASCAR have a rule that when there is an accident, somebody hits the wall, that a red flag goes up or a yellow flag or anything like that? I was just wondering. I didn't hear anything whether or not a flag went up. Usually in a lot of the races, when a caution flag goes up, everybody slows down. but I don't know if that is a rule or they do that or what. So I'll take your answer on the air. Thank you.
Okay. I think a yellow caution flag was in effect, but the cars didn't seem to slow down that much in that race. I don't know.
Well, it didn't seem to slow down, but also this wasn't an official NASCAR event, right? This was
No, it was a
taking place on
sprint
another
car.
track,
Yeah, just a sprint car event. Saturday night special, the night before Watkins Glen, and so you had all kinds of drivers. And you know, NASCAR drivers often they do compete in these types of events before the main big drag takes place on Sunday afternoon. But
yeah, that's right.
But the media coverage on this, I mean, this was all over the morning news, all over the papers. You saw it on the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah.
Something like this hits the Wall Street Journal, it can affect you because Tony Stewart, just the name Tony Stewart in NASCAR, sells.
Absolutely.
Now his name is scarred.
That's right. I mean, yeah, I think you're going to see, as I said earlier, sponsors starting to run away from this a little bit, but they're going to be waiting to see how this plays out as well. I think the next 48 hours are probably critical from the damage control perspective that we were talking about earlier. And I think, yeah, you're going to have to show contrition. You're going to have to come out at some point after a suitable period and make some sort of public statement about this. But
do you think he can go on racing?
Go on, possibly. I mean, it depends what the investigation shows. If he's charged, absolutely not. If he's charged with any kind of crime in this case, then he's finished. But if he's not charged,
even if he's not, how could he go on to the next race? I mean, I'm not sure I could.
Well, I don't think he will for a suitable period of time. I think you're going to see him out probably until next year or something to that effect. But yeah, you're going to have to show contrition. You're going to have to not go back on the track and try to win in that sense. But as I was saying earlier, this is a dangerous sport. I mean, this is far more dangerous than pretty much any American sport. People don't die playing professional tennis or golf or baseball. So I think you're going to see that moment of, you know, is this sport simply too dangerous?
Yeah. Caller, go ahead. You're on the air.
A lot of people are worried about the status of the family.
What family are you talking about, sir?
Of the race car driver that got killed.
Yeah, I haven't read too much about his family and what they're going. I mean, what they're going through right now. I never want to go through that, but
but a lot of people wonder about that. And also, my uncle is an avid race car. He just follows it nonstop, but he wants to know that everybody's all right. How does everybody know that everything's all right? How do race car like fans know that everything's going to be all right with their drivers?
Well, you don't know. You just don't know. I mean, that's part of the risk of being a race car driver. That's part of the risk of getting behind the wheel.
See, I know that, but I'm asking for my uncle. And see, my uncle is pacing back and forth, and he just wants to know.
Well, there is no answer to that. There's no guarantees. Once everything is a risk, and it's pretty much that way in most sports. It's a risk. You could get up to the plate in a baseball game. Someone could fire a 100-mile-an-hour fastball at your head, and you're done.
Well,
I mean, everything is a risk. Everything is a risk.
I think a good analogy here is actually the issue in the NFL involving concussions. And this is an issue that's been playing out for a number of years now, and there's some evidence the NFL has known about the risk for a period of time.
And done nothing about it.
And done nothing about it, absolutely. And this is why you're seeing legal action in that sense. And I guess the caller makes a good point in that sense. How do you know? You never do, right? As I was saying earlier, this is a uniquely dangerous sport in that sense, possibly the most dangerous American sport that's a professional sort of endeavor.
You know, and I'm not sure people go to the track to see accidents and people getting hurt or killed. I don't think that's the case. I think they want to see exciting racing all the way down to the wire. And if a wreck happens, fine. They want to see people walk away.
That's right. Yeah.
Indianapolis, the 500 there, I've been there many times to the race. And I know in recent years they've designed those cars so they disintegrate on impact so the drivers can walk away. It's, you know, it's high-tech stuff that you and I don't understand. But
that's right.
Again, I think the racing community as a whole has tried to make it safer. But then when you have an incident like this, hey, Bradley, human emotion gets involved. You can't control that.
Absolutely. But Again, in every sport you have to in that sense, right? If you get hit by a pitch in baseball and you charge the mound and beat up the pitcher, there are consequences for that in that sense. And the question is, should there be rules put into place for this? We've seen this before, the Dale Earnhardt case. Tragic, right?
Oh,
a driver
my goodness,
killed in his prime in that sense.
Yeah, during the Daytona 500.
During the Daytona 500, right on the track. I mean, literally has become a living legend within the NASCAR community. So this is a sport that is still a fairly recent one, right? Baseball is 150 years old in America. NASCAR is only a few decades old. One of the most popular sports in the country. But the question is, are there enough safety measures in place?
Yeah, that's the question. And just like in football, football's done nothing about it. And now they're because of the lawsuit. Well,
yeah.
Now they're looking at it.
Absolutely.
Caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Yeah, my first statement is basically, we obviously have two hotheads on their hands. We have Tony Stewart and the youngster that got hit. And it's all in God's hands now, but why didn't they deal with this 20-year-old hothead in the first place? Where were anybody helping him? Because obviously he has a temper too. Because that's why he didn't think before he jumped out of the car.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what we're agreeing with, is that there's responsibility certainly on the side of the victim here in this case, and we don't know whether there was any intent or this is a tragic accident or what happened here. But I think the wider question remains in that sense of, is there enough safety in place for these drivers who are professional athletes in that sense?
Yeah. Hey, I appreciate the call, ma'am. You have a good day. And the other question is, if you're the investigators, if you're the DA or the Sheriff's Department up there in upstate New York, how do you investigate this? Do you talk to Tony Stewart? How do you know if he's telling the truth? You can't really read his mind. What was your intent? This is a difficult case to prove, like you said, but if you're anywhere near this case from an authority standpoint, how do you determine what happened?
I don't think you do, honestly. I think you interview people involved. There's obviously many witnesses, but how do you? Fundamentally, this is a question of what's on a person's mind in a moment of, obviously, as you've said, heated emotion and essentially something that happens within seconds. We've seen the video several times. There's very little time for Tony Stewart to have made any decision here. So, yeah, I think it's going to be pretty much impossible to file charges unless he makes a statement to investigators that leads them in that direction.
Yeah, now most of us around the country, 20-year-old Ken Ward had never heard of him before, a young race car driver. Most everyone in the sports world has heard of Tony Stewart, and he has a history of being kind of a hothead, hot-tempered, emotional, looking to settle the score whenever he possibly can, but we don't know if that was a factor either. So, anyway, we're going to continue with our show here on Connect with Me, 436-MeTV, option 11. Do call in. Turn down the sound. Back in a moment.
Don't you ever hit me again!
Chief, I think we got a hit on our hands.
MeTV Fresno, now on Comcast Channel 187.
All right, we'll talk about this tragedy that happened over the weekend regarding Tony Stewart here for the next couple of minutes. But think of the national. I mean, this is getting national attention. There's no question about it. We'll take a phone call and pick up on that point in a moment. Caller, go ahead. What's your comment? Hey, caller, you there?
Yes.
Speak up. Go ahead and talk into the phone. Speak up.
You know, I've been out camping, and all I hear now is Tony Stewart, but I still don't know what happened or how it happened or who it happened to. All I hear is the name Tony Stewart because I've been out camping. Who did this happen to?
Okay. Well, thank you for the call. I really appreciate it. One more time, we'll show the videotape just one more time here, and then we'll move on to another topic. Basically, if you haven't heard, this happened over the weekend at a sprint car race, upstate New York. And there they are going around the track. Tony Stewart, allegedly so, put 20-year-old Ken Ward's car into the wall right there. He spun out. So Ken Ward Jr., there you see him there, his car. He's inside the car now. That's where he should have stayed. He should have stayed in his car right there until the rescue crews got there to take him out or pull him out. But no, he gets out of the car and he wants to get even with Tony Stewart, pointing his finger. before he actually gets hit by the right tire of the car driven by Tony Stewart. The question is, was it intentional? Was Ken Ward Jr., was it part of his responsibility not to get out of that car? The bigger question I have is, too, is will charges be filed against Tony Stewart? Now, this happened at a sprint car race Saturday night. Very little media coverage. That was an amateur video that took place. Imagine, I'll pick up on this point, but I don't want to put the question in your mind right now. Imagine if this happened on live national television during a NASCAR race. Imagine. We'll pick up on that in a second, Bradley. Caller, go ahead. You're on the air.
Yes. My husband's been on a pit crew, or he has been for a long time, and there is a rule that they are not to get out of their cars. That's a rule. It's in NASCAR. It's in any of the racing. You go to even at the Madeira track, they'll tell you that. You don't get out of your car. And as for Dale Earnhardt, he is the last NASCAR driver to be killed in a NASCAR race. And it was not because he got out of his car. His neck snapped. They now have a piece of equipment that fits in the car that prevents this, and that's why there's been no one else that's killed. Before these people come on air and act like they're experts, they really need to get their facts straight. Tony Stewart is upset about this. He wasn't able to race yesterday, and he probably won't be able to race for a while. He may have punched somebody, he may have thrown his helmet at somebody, but he has never killed anybody on purpose. And this needs to be brought out to the attention of the people listening to this program. You are not stating your facts clearly.
Well, we are stating the facts clearly as to what we know at this point. I mean, we don't know exactly what happened. We know this. We know Ken Ward got out of the car after his car spun out and hit the wall. Do we not know that? Yeah, we know that. Okay, Ken Ward got out of his car, started pointing his finger. Tony Stewart's car hit him. We know that. What we don't know is, was it intentional?
Yeah, that's
what we don't know.
That's right. Your caller is correct. Yes, there are rules in place for this. But again, Dale Earnhardt is the last NASCAR driver to have been killed in a race, as far as I'm aware. I mean, I think your caller
and he
is
didn't
correct
get out
on
of his car. We all know that.
That's correct.
We didn't say he got out of his car.
Correct. Yeah, that was a very different set of circumstances in that case. And we've never said that Tony Stewart deliberately hit this man, because we don't know
said
that.
We don't. We've said on this program for the last 25 minutes, we don't know what happened.
Correct. Yeah, that's right. No, but I think it is a point worth revisiting in the sense that yes, there are safety procedures in place, but when Dale Earnhardt died, they did have to introduce new safety measures. And the question is, do there need to be greater penalties? Do there need to be changes in that sense? And yes, obviously this is on the books already, but still someone has been killed in this sense. So do new safety measures need to be put in place, or is there sufficient procedures in place already?
And as you know, people in the media, people that are famous, people that are well known across the country, perception is reality. It's not reality being reality, it's perception being reality. So we don't know what the case was with Tony Stewart, if this was a real thing where he tried to run him over or not. We're not saying he did it intentionally. Good morning, caller. You're on the air. Go ahead.
I'm not really a race car watcher, but I've seen this over and over and over. The guy that jumped out of the car, what person could think they could go against traffic in a race?
Yeah.
I mean, you teach your children to watch out for cars on an ordinary road. And it looks to me like the guy that was driving, he ran at him right as he got there. I think he turned a little to the right to avoid him and clipped him with the back of his car.
Yeah, he fishtailed.
It just looks to me like that the guy that jumped out of the car caused everything and caused a lot of trouble for everybody and the driver. Thank you.
Okay, well, it's nothing new that we haven't mentioned here for the last 20 or 25 minutes. There's no question that what we do know is that Ward got out of his car. He was hit, intentional or not. There is that perception now because of Tony Stewart's past behavior of being hot-tempered. That was the question. Okay, caller, go ahead. Another call here on...
Very viable.
Yeah, go ahead. Hello?
So, I'm there. I'm right here.
Go ahead and talk. You're on the air.
It's very valuable what you guys have been talking about. But racers, real racers, what they want to see is safety on the track. Safety on the track. And see, everybody knows Tony Smith, and they want to go behind him, but everybody else that races, like in the back streets and everything else, they want safety. Safety first. Safety is always first. And if these million-dollar corporations can't put safety first, then they can't put nothing. See, the life of a person is invaluable. Safety is first.
Okay. Thank you for the call. I appreciate the comment. We're not going to disagree with that. Of course, safety is first. That goes without saying.
Absolutely, and this is, again, an issue in other professional sports as well, the concussion issue in the NFL. A lot of people are heated about that. There's discussions about whether kickoffs should be banned from professional football because of that issue, right? So safety first, and your caller brings up a good point. I mean, there's a profit motive in all of this. Why do people watch football? Because of the hits, to a certain extent. Why do people watch NASCAR? Not because they want anyone to be hurt, seriously, in that sense, but crashes take place.
They want to see a wild, exciting finish to a race.
Exactly.
That's what they want.
And crashes are part of it. There's certain dangers in every sport, and that's simply how it is. So.
Got to take a break. We're here with Bradley Hart talking about this, not NASCAR event, but actually a sprint car event that took place on Saturday night involving Tony Stewart. Back in just a moment with more of Connect with Me.
When you like Ventura TV Appliance on Facebook, it's nice. But when you love the Frigidaire Gallery appliances we deliver, it's even better. Our website is cool, and it's a good place to start, but you really should touch the merchandise before you buy.
Time for that upgrade to an Energy Star qualified French door Frigidaire Gallery refrigerator.
Quality appliances for the way you live. Get the best selection, price, and service in town without waiting. Come in to Ventura TV Appliance and touch the merchandise.
So call in at 436-MeTV option 11. We have another 30 minutes of exciting programming here left with Connect with Me. This morning we're here until 11 o'clock, and we do have a call coming in. Good morning. You're on Connect with Me. What's your question? Hey, caller, are you there?
Yes.
Yeah, we'd love to take your call. Go ahead. You're on the air.
How many times have you seen a race car driver get out of his car in any kind of a race, stock cars, walk across the street, across the track, and throw the helmet at the guy going by? The same thing going on here. They should stay in their cars. That's part of the rules.
Yeah, you're right. No question. I mean, the guy should have stayed in his car, Ken Ward Jr. And I have actually seen that in other sprint car events and other racing events where a driver will get out of his car and throw his helmet at the car that cut him off as he's going by.
Yeah, this is part of the excitement of racing, and a number of callers have brought this up. Yes, it's against the rules in that sense. I think the question for NASCAR is, should there be greater penalties? Should you be out for the rest of the season? Should you be out for a period of time, right? Should you be fined a significant amount of money if you do this type of thing? You know, rules are in place, but to an extent, every athlete sees rules as being meant to be broken in that sense. That's why there's penalty boxes in hockey.
I know you were a lot younger when this happened, but I go back to the incident involving, I don't know if this is comparable or not. You remember when Lawrence Taylor broke Joe Theismann's leg on Monday Night Football, no less. Was that intentional? Oh, it's part of the game. It just happened. You know, can you say the same thing in this case? This is part of the game. It just happened? I don't know. Different set of scenarios here. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Hi. About the Tony Stewart accident.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think that if people are not wanting to blame the victim. That's the biggest thing, is people don't want to blame the victim, but that's the problem with this situation, is that it is the victim's fault. It's not Tony Stewart's fault because he was, driving a race car on a dirt track. The guy got out of his car and walked basically into his own death.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the general consensus at this point. We don't really have any information other than what we know at this point, and that is that he got out of his car, he was hit. We don't know if it was intentional. Would you, oh, the caller's gone. Would you not agree with that? I mean, everybody calling in pretty much has the same perspective. Would you say the majority of the calls today, Bradley, were the fact that they all agreed that this was Ken Ward's fault more than it was Tony Stewart's?
That's what I'm sensing in that, and that would be my. I mean, I wouldn't want to say it's more his fault in that sense. Obviously, it's a tragedy.
From the caller's standpoint.
From the caller's standpoint, I think I think
they're blaming more on Ward's side than they are Stewart.
Yeah, I don't think anyone has defended Ward getting out of the car in that sense. I think it's impossible to defend in that sense. It's against the rules. It's obviously a really bad idea for the reasons that we've seen here. Again, I think the question is, what is NASCAR's collective response? This was not a NASCAR event. This was a sprint car event. Yeah.
What's racing's response in general across the board about this? Would it be Indy, NASCAR, Formula One, whatever the case may be, sprint cars? Good morning. You're on Connect with Me. Go ahead.
Hi. How are you today?
Good. What's on your mind?
Oh, I was calling about this NASCAR thing.
Yeah. Go ahead.
And well, I was reviewing this a little bit, and I know Tony Stewart's a very good professional race car driver, and I'm sure he's aware of all the safeties that go on in that business. The thing is that a driver's getting out of his car. Of course, he's, it's pretty dark out there. Anything can happen. I don't understand why there's no more safety features involved in that.
Yeah, I don't understand it either, to be honest with you. There should be more penalties. Are you a racing fan? Were you a driver at one point, or what?
I have some relatives that do race.
And have you talked to them about this incident? What do they think?
Well, it just seems like it's a dark area back there in the back. And it didn't look like, from when I looked at the video, that he had touched him, or I'm sure he got forced out somehow, and he got out of his car, which is, he looked pretty dark back there. I didn't understand why there's no safety features on a man that gets out of his car. He's not bright enough to see.
Well, this happened, caller, I just want to say, this happened along the back stretch of the racetrack. And that part of the racetrack, as you see the video there, looked like it was, like you mentioned, very dark. The lighting was very poor. And the other question is, did Tony Stewart, how was his vision? Could you see? Look how dark the track is right here. I don't know if you're watching your monitors at home right now, but look at that, how dark that racetrack is on the back stretch.
Yeah, it is pretty dark back there. I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah, it's very dark, and so he gets out of the track. I mean, there is lighting there, but the lighting, how sufficient is it for Tony Stewart and the other drivers to see if someone does come darting out of their car? And now, I would
think they'd have like their suits or something like that. I mean, I know they're not supposed to be getting out of their cars to begin with, especially running down on the track, but a safety feature would be like if he was lit up a lot better.
Yeah,
that may be an issue,
No, and the other thing I was going to mention, and Bradley, you could probably comment on this. Imagine what a surprise it was to the other drivers to see what they thought was a person running onto the track as they're zooming around at like 100 miles an hour.
Well, yeah, I think it's pretty clear that these drivers only have possibly less than a few seconds to make a decision here, right?
I mean, less than a second.
Less than a second, right? I mean, you see the first driver barely miss him. He's in dark clothing as well, I think it's worth pointing out in that sense. I mean, this is a combination of terrible factors that combine for this accident. So again, I think that's where you're going to see this reflection of, were there sufficient safety measures in place? Should there be additional safety measures that are put into place, type of thing? That's the wider dialogue, I think.
Do you think this event would have been magnified by 100 times had it been televised on national television during a NASCAR race and somebody would have been run over and killed?
Would have been disastrous. I mean, yeah, it would have been an absolute catastrophe for NASCAR. You would see huge amounts of soul searching. The fact that this wasn't televised in some senses is very fortunate for the sport, I think, in that sense. But again, we should point out this was a sprint car race, not a NASCAR race. There are different factors at play here. But yeah, I think that in terms of the safety measures that are in place in auto racing, I think you're going to see this. Formula One is another form of auto racing we haven't talked about so much. Formula One is quite dangerous from that perspective because the tracks are very different, right? These are races where you're going through the mountains in Europe and
very
things of
narrow
that sort.
Tracks.
Very narrow tracks, right? I mean, historically, a large number of fatalities, especially before modern safety implements in vehicles in that sense.
Yeah, and you lived in Europe, so you're familiar with Formula One more than we are here because they have many of those races over there and in South America. And so, yeah, very dangerous. There's no question about it. Another call coming in. Very popular topic here today. Good morning. You're on Connect with Me. Your question or comment?
I think it was just Tony Stewart is so famous that it just got blew up. And these things happen. They happen in motocross.
Yeah.
They happen in all kinds of motorsports. It's just somebody doesn't play by the rules. He jumped out of his vehicle.
Yeah. Okay.
And everybody that knows the sport goes by the sport.
Yeah.
And they know the risks.
Yeah.
And they take those risks. If you do not want to play by the sport and go by the risks, then you can sign a waiver. You can do anything that you want. But you play the sport. But
okay. I appreciate
Tony Stewart.
Yeah, go ahead.
Was playing the sport, and the other guy that died played the sport too.
Okay.
And that people need to understand. In America, we are sports players. We are sports players.
Okay.
If you do not want to play the sport, don't sign up for the sport.
All right. Appreciate the call. Thank you for chiming in here today. Quickly, before we go to break, hey, is it a big story because Tony Stewart was involved?
I think the caller brings up a really good point there, actually. Yeah, it is a big story because it's Tony Stewart involved. If this had been a no-name driver that no one knew, this wouldn't be news, right? It wouldn't be on page 3 of the Wall Street Journal today. It wouldn't be a national story in that sense. So your caller is absolutely right. But I think, on the other hand, we expect more from people that are professionals in that sense, right? We expect that somebody who's an amateur on a racetrack, maybe not having the same abilities to avoid a driver in that sense. Absolutely right. This is a story because of the people involved in that sense.
All right, Bradley Hart is here. We're talking about the Tony Stewart situation, and we're going to change topics here. When we come back after the break, we're back in just a moment.
When you like Ventura TV Appliance on Facebook, it's nice. But when you love the Samsung big screen we deliver, it's even better. Our website is cool, and it's a good place to start. But you really should touch the merchandise before you buy.
Time for that upgrade to an HD 3D web-enabled Samsung TV.
Get the best selection, price, and service in town without waiting. Come in to Ventura TV Appliance and touch the merchandise today.
Good morning. Here, you're on Connect with Me. Caller, what is your question?
Yes, anyone that's been to a sprint car race, they race on dirt, and you know that they're running on the ragged edge, and at any time they come out of that turn, they've got it crossed up, and they're all over the track. He could have gone any direction with that car and gone around this guy. You're basically right on the very edge, and you've got your foot in the throttle on this. It's full bore. There's not much a guy can do as far as trying to swerve at that point.
That's true. Yeah, because you're running full out. I mean, you got your foot on the throttle down to the floor.
Yeah.
You're running all out. The car, like he said, in a dirt track situation, it's not like on pavement. The car is all over the track.
Yeah, you're drifting across, you're sliding. I mean, we don't know I personally don't know what the conditions were here. I believe that the track was a bit wet, so that could have played a role as well. So, we simply don't know.
Hey, time to switch topics here on Connect with Me. We're going to drastically change the subject now and talk about that Fox 40 news anchor up in Sacramento. I want to put her picture up on the screen. We'll get Bradley's thoughts about this. This one here, Sabrina Rodriguez is her name, arrested, now facing grand theft, burglary, and conspiracy charges. Tell you what, Rodriguez took a leave of absence from Fox 40 there up in Sacramento, since has voluntarily resigned her position. As you can see there, look at the 2 Emmys next to her. She's an award-winning news anchor / reporter, having won several of these Emmys, not just 2 of them as you see here. By the way, as you keep that picture up on the screen here, her alleged accomplice is her boyfriend, her fiance, Nicholas Gray. Authorities have seized several text messages between the two talking about stealing high-end sweaters, purses, other items. Brad, weigh in on this. This is shocking, to say the least.
Well, shocking to say the least. I mean, obviously a sort of public relations nightmare for the station involved here, I think. You know, what can you do about a circumstance like this? People who are on television have personal lives that sometimes aren't that salubrious. So,
Right.
it's a difficult situation in that sense. I should point out no one has been convicted of a crime here. These are merely accusations. But, yeah, very, very difficult to know. I mean, I think we're probably, or the folks in Sacramento, not likely to see this person on the air anytime soon.
No time soon. But prosecutors say that they have surveillance video, and apparently Gray is heard broadcasting over these tapes, bragging about stealing about $200,000 worth of merchandise. This is her fiance. Gray also facing separate arson and drug charges. This was her fiance, so maybe mingling with the wrong crowd perhaps. But what does this do to a news station's identity, the public perception, credibility, the whole 9 yards involved here?
Well, again, nothing good in that sense. It's similar to what we were talking about earlier. I think if you're the news director at this station, you have to simply come clean on something like this. This is under investigation. There have been no convictions made in that capacity. Again, innocent until proven guilty, but I think you have to take action to preserve your credibility in that sense, and that's what they've done, effectively.
Okay. Now, if you're the media consultant for this station or this news anchor, what do you do? What do you tell station management at this point? Because she apparently voluntarily resigned on her own.
Yeah.
We don't know if management came to her and said, hey, look, this is the best thing for you to do. I don't know. So if you were advising, you would say what?
I'd simply say, accept the resignation, part ways at this point. Obviously she needs to repair her reputation and fight these legal charges, so that's going to be a time-consuming thing from her perspective. If I'm a news director, though, my concern is how do I maintain credibility in that sense.
All right. Call coming in. Good morning. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Yes, sir, Mr. Malice. I'd like to know, since the accident with Tony Stewart, did the track officials have enough time to throw down the yellow flag to slow the racers down to try to prevent that accident?
Okay, here's what I've read so far on the internet, both last night and this morning on this situation. I haven't read the Wall Street Journal article, but they said that the yellow flag was in effect when the car spun out and went into the wall. That's Ken Ward's car. Whether or not the yellow flag was in effect, I don't know for sure, because this is amateur video. This isn't a televised event. The video that we showed you was taken by someone in the stands with obviously either a cell phone or some kind of video camera, so I have no way of knowing other than what I've read on the internet. I don't know about what the Wall Street Journal said today, Brad.
Yeah, I don't know. But the question is, even under a yellow flag, would they be going slowly enough to be able to prevent something like this? Again, this is a very fast-moving situation. Even if you are slowed down, it would still be a fatal crash.
And the other thing is, did the driver see the yellow flag in time?
Precisely.
That's the thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Yes, I was watching your commentary on television.
Go ahead.
And I saw the race, and I saw what happened, and nobody's addressing the fact that Tony Stewart turned into the guy when he went by him and spun his car a little bit to clip him with the rear tire. He did that on purpose to scare him, but he hit the guy intentionally.
How do you know that he hit him intentionally? How do you know that?
I used to race myself, and I saw it, and there's no question about it that he turned into the guy.
Are you an ex-racer?
Yes, I am.
Okay, then you should know better than me, because I have never raced. I've been in a sprint car one time as a test.
Yeah, that's
okay,
why
you know that a sprint car is all over the track. It's hard to control. Is that right?
Yeah, not at low speeds like that.
How fast were those cars going in your estimation?
Approximately 40 miles an hour.
Okay, would you agree that the lighting was not the best?
No, I would not. Otherwise, they would not be racing. The lighting was fine. I'm just stating what I saw, and I saw Tony Stewart turn into the guy and hit him intentionally after the fact that he spun him out, and nobody's saying anything that Tony Stewart spun him out. Everybody's
well, then
saying,
how come?
He spun out by himself.
Well, then, okay, if you're an ex-racer, then answer this question: how come the authorities don't know that, and they're on the scene? You're 3,000 miles away.
I saw it with my own eyes. The authorities saw it with their own eyes. It's blatant that there's a cover-up to cover him up, and I don't blame him. Racers are like that. They try and cover their cohorts up. Television announcers try and keep it low profile until all the facts come out. But what I saw was Tony Stewart drive into the kid, and to me, there's just no way around that.
Yeah, but don't you think, as a driver, and you're driving under low light conditions, I don't think the lighting was all that great on the backstretch.
I've driven at nighttime many times, and it does not impair your vision.
Okay, let me ask
somebody
you.
on the track. Besides, when the yellow comes on, you're supposed to slow your car down and drive to the inside. Now, not everybody did that, including another driver that went by him. But when Tony went by him, he did something that the other drivers did not do, and that was flip his car to the right. And if you watch it in slow motion, you'll see it. He turned to the right and pitched his car a little bit. Now, if he was trying to avoid him, he would turn to the left and wouldn't have turned to the right. I know how to drive. I know what the drivers go through, and I saw it. It was blatant. I mean, you can cover him up if you like, but I know what I saw.
I'm not trying to listen. I'm not.
I just heard too much cover up on him. I had to say what I said.
No, I'm not. Listen, stay there, caller, for a second, because I want to tell you this. I'm not trying to cover up for anybody. Neither is Bradley Hart. I think we're just trying to evaluate the situation.
Right. Get the facts out.
Get the facts out. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm not pointing the finger at anybody. Ward should. Would you agree that Ward should not have come out of his car, though?
Oh yeah, I agree. Yeah, he should have stayed in, but there was no reason for Tony Stewart to turn at him, and I mean, it wasn't intentional that Tony Stewart killed the guy. Okay, let me get that clear. It was an accident, but he was pissed that he was giving him the finger. He wanted to scare him, and that's what I think happened. So he turned his car into him to give him a little scare with the back tire, and it just went too far, and he hit him.
Okay, so you don't think that my observation is correct, that some drivers, including Stewart, might have been a little bit shocked to see this guy walking out onto the track and startled behind the wheel?
It happens a lot more than you think, and it happens at almost every race. Somebody gets out of their car, points a finger, throws a helmet, jumps through a windshield. I mean, come on.
Okay. All right. All right, sir. You know what? I value your opinion, and I appreciate the phone call.
Well, I appreciate that, but you watch it in slow motion like I did, and you'll see that it was
okay.
late.
All right. Thank you very much for the call, but I hearken back to what you said earlier. Harsher penalties and restrictions could prevent something like this.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, the caller might well be right. It sounds like he's more of an expert than I am, certainly on driving. If he has driven many times, I mean, he might well be correct. Those are the types of expert witnesses the authorities will be asking for their opinions in that sense as to whether this is the case. But again, I think it is important to note from a legal perspective that even if that is true, it's difficult to prove intent, right? As you know, the caller mentioned, as we've been talking, even if he did try to scare him and it got out of hand, is that criminal, or how criminal is that in that sense? Is it possible to file charges?
You're absolutely right, and I agree. And we're not here to convict anybody or point the finger. We're here to draw out the facts. We have another phone call? Call coming in? Okay. Caller, you're on the air. Quickly, we're running short on time.
Yes.
Hey, go ahead.
I like your last caller just called here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I seen the same thing he seen. I think he turned to him just to scare him. I seen the same thing.
Okay.
I would agree with him.
Okay, I appreciate the phone call.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for the phone call. We're back here on Connect with Me in just a moment.
When you're looking for KitchenAid innovation and quality, who has the answers, the selection, the price? Ventura TV Appliance. With billions in nationwide appliance buying power, more than Home Depot and Best Buy combined, we'll help you save. Our low prices on Energy Star qualified KitchenAid appliances save you energy and money, and pay no interest on select models when paid in full within 12 months. Ventura TV Appliance, serving you since 1951.
Back here on Connect with Me, another call coming in. Good morning. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Yes. He had to turn towards him, because if he would have turned away from him, the back end of the car would have swung out and got him worse. He had to go turn the wheels to the right and try to just miss him, because if he would have turned him to the left on a dirt track, that back of the car would have slid around and it would have hit him even worse.
Okay. I appreciate the phone call. Now, keep in mind, you know, these callers are calling, and I respect that one race car driver, former race car driver that called in. All of these decisions are happening in less than a split second.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're sitting here Monday morning quarterbacking this thing. You know, Brad?
Yeah, again, none of us were there. I mean, the caller who is a former driver knows this as well as any of us, or better than any of us.
Better than me.
Yeah, far better than either of us in that sense. And I take his word for it, and the caller is correct in that sense, right? That,
yeah.
This is a very difficult decision to make. This is a very difficult situation to be in that sense. Obviously, when you have a high level of experience, you understand this slightly better, right. I suppose, in that sense.
All right. Let's change topics here real quick. I want to get your comment on this. I spent a lot of time reading about this last night on the internet and the airstrikes in Iraq. And, of course, the President Obama has said he does not expect a full-blown invasion of Iraq. Again, here you see some of the airstrikes, American airstrikes, though, carried out by some drones and some fighter jets, are designed to help support the Kurdish people in the northern part of Iraq. And so this is, correct me if I'm wrong here, Brad, these strikes are designed to help the Kurds out of the mountains, but also to help try to destroy ISIS. That's that terrorist group. Is this going to work?
Well, yeah, I'm not sure in the sense of destroy them. I think the idea here is to give support to the U.S.'s allies in that sense. I mean, the big question that the U.S. is facing here is, what do you do in this circumstance, right? The U.S. has effectively... Iraq has been a client state of the U.S. since about 2003, 2004, when the initial invasion took place. We're now 10 or 11 years past that. Iraq is descending into chaos. Baghdad could be under siege for, the most recent time.
But ISIS is the new... the new #1 enemy in Iraq, because there's you've got these young men, Sunni men that are as young as 9 years old, these boys that are joining this terrorist group that's 10,000 strong, and they're like a military that's not even like a separated group of terrorists. It's one big group, like a military unit.
Yeah, and not just in Iraq, we should point out, in Syria as well. And part of the issue here is that you have remains of the Iraqi military that have joined up. So you have command and control. You have experienced veterans that fought maybe even in the Iran-Iraq war here, battle-hardened in that sense. And then you also have the fact that the U.S. has actually in some ways funded these people, because these are actually the Syrian rebels. These are actually a derivative of the Syrian rebel groups that are fighting Assad. So you have a number of unpalatable choices here, I think.
Amazing. Okay, good morning, caller. Well, you were there. So are what we doing in Iraq now with these drone strikes and these fighter jet strikes, is it working? Is it good strategy on our part or not?
Well, I mean, what else can you do in that sense? I mean, how many people in the United States would really want another invasion of the country?
Nobody.
Well, nobody in that sense, right? But what else do you do in that capacity?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you've got a situation that's out of control here. The entire Middle East appears to be coming apart at the seams right now. You've got a situation in Egypt that's intolerable. The Gaza situation,
right.
Obviously extremely violent.
But specifically with the airstrikes in Iraq, should we be doing that? And what is the president thinking, do you think? What's his strategy, in your opinion?
He's trying to stave off defeat. I mean, he's trying to stave off the fall of Baghdad, which would be an absolute catastrophe for the U.S. politically, and it would be a catastrophe for the region in that capacity.
Right.
I mean, I think that you have two questions here. One is, if you don't think there should be airstrikes, what do you think should happen? And B, is there an appetite for a ground invasion? Is there an appetite to have troops
not
on
in
the
this
ground
country.
there?
No.
Right. I mean, and look what happened when the president proposed airstrikes in Syria 6 or 8
Quickly, in Gaza, is there any relation here to what's going on in Iraq? Because obviously Israel is not letting up. You've had 10,000 homes destroyed, nearly 2,000 people, Palestinians killed in Gaza. Benjamin Netanyahu, he's the prime minister. He said he's not letting up. He's going to try to destroy the tunnels that lead into Israel. What's happening here?
Well, we're seeing just another outburst of violence in that sense. We're also seeing a huge amount of unrest on the ground here. I mean, this is an unusually violent incursion into Gaza by Israel. In the past, when they've done this, it's usually been fairly restrained, even the one sort of about 10 years ago now.
Is this all connected here with Gaza, what's going on in Iraq with ISIS and Syria? Is there a connection there?
I'm not sure there's a conspiratorial connection. I think you're seeing just general unrest in the Middle East generally. I mean, the Arab Spring, everyone thought 5 years ago was going to be this great flourishing of democracy. It's gone completely the other direction, right? We've seen just unrest after unrest. Look at Egypt. Egypt is on the brink.
And Iran, you have to throw them into the mix here someplace. Somehow they're providing maybe money or weapons to Hamas, maybe. I've heard that. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, absolutely, and one possible option for the U.S. is to join forces with Iran to fight against ISIS. In that sense, you have very complicated geopolitical strategy, geopolitical chess going on right now.
Bradley, hey, it's good to see you. You got to come back more often.
Absolutely,
man. I love having you here.
It's been fun.
Great, and many more calls than your dad, by the way.
As
the
always.
One Dennis Hart. As always, more calls than Dennis Hart. All right, that's going to do it for us. We're back with another edition of Connect with Me. We have 2 guests, I think, coming in tomorrow. 2, one of them being the owner of the Fresno Grizzlies. Have a great day. See you tomorrow.